Zoey is one of the more intriguing characters in K-pop Demon Hunters because there is a significant difference between how she is perceived in universe by the characters in the film, her friends to an extent, but especially the fans that are so central to the film, and who she actually is as a person. This takes multiple forms. For one, her image is that of the cute, younger one of the group, always adorable, always sweet and funny, and even her badass rapping skills, in a sense, only add to her cuteness instead of detracting from it. And none of that is wrong necessarily. It's just a fundamental simplification of who she is. All of these girls experience it to an extent. Rumi is the untouchable, sophisticated queen leader of the group. Mira is the defiant punk rebel. But both of those girls are significantly more uncertain and significantly more filled with unease than they show to the fans, than their public personas would suggest. Now, in the real-life K-pop industry, where personas are very carefully crafted with an almost impossible precision for maximum commercial appeal, these would be the personas crafted for these girls in order to appeal to the public. But these girls are their own bosses. Huntrix are their own bosses. They are not doing this on behalf of some greedy management team. Bobby, we see, clearly works for them and not the other way around, which is one reason perhaps why the relationship between them is so unlike what we see from your standard idol stars and their managers and handlers, where there are many, many, many stories of girls and boys getting very much brutalized and suffering psychological breakdowns because of demanding management. The girls fundamentally craft these portrayals for themselves, but they are influenced by Celine and this longer influence of hunters before them, who are very much pushing the message that you should hide your faults, you should not necessarily reveal those messier sides of yourself, and instead you should work on projecting this image of not just positivity, but triumph and success. The Huntrix girls can be different between their different songs. They can be glowingly inspirational, or they can be fierce and unstoppable, but they're still projecting the same image of triumph, of overcoming all obstacles. Which is why the transition to "This Is What It Sounds Like" at the end is significant, because that song thematically marks the three of them stepping forward and being willing to show off their imperfections without shame or without fear. This is primarily focused on Rumi, because K-pop Demon Hunters is fundamentally Rumi's story. Zoey and Mira, while their characters are sketched quite well, they're not really given nearly the same level of development. And that's fine. That's not a fault of the film, necessarily. And since the film was so successful, and we will probably get at least one sequel, perhaps more, I hope they do more to focus more on Zoey and Mira, because there is a lot to explore there. We see that Zoey is someone who feels inadequate a lot, and her desire to kind of be a people pleaser, to satisfy everyone, including Rumi and Mira, her closest friends, but also all the fans they meet, that is fundamentally grounded in her overexerting herself in order to win the acclaim and appreciation of other people. We see that she has never really fit in. From what we get of Zoey's story, she grew up in Burbank, California, which itself is kind of a cute in-joke, considering that's the home of American animation. That's where animated films are made and have been made since Disney moved their animation studios out there in the early to mid part of the 20th century, back when that area was much less developed than it is now. So Zoey grew up in Burbank and felt kind of torn between America and South Korea. She ultimately chose to become a demon hunter in South Korea and also a big K-pop idol. Now, this is something that happens. There are members of the Korean diaspora who come back, quote unquote, to their ancestral homeland to try to make it in the K-pop industry. Whether that's from America or other nations, mostly Anglospheric nations where a lot of Koreans have immigrated. So this is a real, reasonable thing, but it is also a way for the film to fundamentally reflect on Asian American identity from this other perspective, from the other side of that, instead of being a Korean American. She's kind of like an American Korean. She's someone raised in a distinctly American culture and is very much perceived of as a kind of exotic foreigner in a way, now that she lives in Korea. This makes her deeply uncomfortable. She lacks a sense of being able to fit in. It would also be interesting to see her parental situation. We don't really know this, unlike for Mira, where we have a pretty good idea about her family, or Rumi, where we also have a pretty good idea, albeit with a huge blank, about her demon father. It's possible, as some people have suggested, that her parents were divorced, which would add to this feeling of isolation, of not really belonging anywhere, of not being able to fit in. There's no solid evidence to back this up, but it's a sensible assertion that would fundamentally fit with what else we know about her as a character. And tying into this unease that she feels that's not reflected in her public persona, there's also her vague discomfort that we see at this way that people perceive her in terms of national identity. She is very much exoticized. It's this kind of strange inverse of the scenario that a lot of Asian Americans are more familiar with, of being perceived of as this other, even though you've lived in the United States your entire life. Zoey is fundamentally perceived of as an American in Korea, and kind of all the packaging around her is about that. And this is not meant in a negative way. I think that's important to emphasize. She's not, say, discriminated against because of this. It's just a bit awkward. Like, her special ramen flair is hamburger because she's an American, and her little image on the ramen and pack has her with this huge kind of Uncle Sam hat. It's kind of ridiculous and stereotypical. Arguably, you could say even her position as the rapper within the group, and how that's fundamentally accentuated as part of her persona, reflects her Americanness, because rap is, though it's spread worldwide, a fundamentally American art form. So that is Zoey. We don't see her be as deeply troubled by these anxieties as Rumi is. But then again, the film's not about Zoey in the same way it's about Rumi. There is certainly more space in Zoey's psychology to explore. She fundamentally yearns for a sense of home in the same way that Mira does, albeit in a slightly different way. Simone Weil, the great French philosopher, talks about the importance of having roots, the importance of being grounded in a milieu, in a culture, in a sense of history and traditions that is beyond your own individual self, beyond the trends and tendencies of the day, beyond your own psychology as well. Huntrix and this demon hunting enterprise kind of gives that to Zoey. It gives her the sense of belonging to something greater than her own confused, disconnected self. It gives her a sense of meaning in her life. She is fundamentally looking for a sense of home, a sense of what the Germans call Heimat. That is Heimat. There's no real good English equivalent to this word. It's kind of like a homeliness. It's the opposite of alienation. It's the sense of being at home, not simply in a physical state, but in a state of mind, in a way of experiencing the world, not being strange or disconnected or commodified, but as something that you have this organic closeness and intimacy to. That's what Zoey wants. Roots strong enough to survive the storms. You think about a natural environment. If all the trees are chopped down and all the roots are lost, and when the storms come, all the dirt is flooded out. And it's like that with people as well. When people have these strong roots in a community, in a greater sense of purpose and meaning, in a greater sense of history, greater sense of common connection with others, then they are more able to survive chaotic circumstances that occur. That is what Zoey wants, and that is what she finds with Huntrix. So when that is troubled, when that's taken away from her by the Sagja boys, she falls into this deep sense of malaise. Zoey does not have a clear sense of who she is without Huntrix, and that's a tension it might be interesting to explore in future films. I also want to point out that although the Sagda boys are, terrible, they're demons and they're trying to steal people's souls, the appeal of the kind of authoritarian idea of fandom that they are pushing has this kind of populist appeal to it. They are saying, you have these fears and anxieties, and no one will love you for them. You know that. But if you give them to me, if you trust me with them, I will give you a sense of purpose. I will give you a sense of meaning. I've heard people connect this to, say, an abusive romantic partner, but it is at least as true, I'd say, of these larger populist political movements that fundamentally take advantage of people genuinely feeling out of place and lacking any sense of purpose or greater connection or meaning in their lives in an alienating world. Someone like Zoey feels the appeal of that. Like, she feels that she doesn't really have a place, and if the Sagda boys will offer her that, well, that makes it not so bad, perhaps. I do like that it's not just as simple as the Sagda boys just mind control everyone. It's that they fundamentally appeal to people's weaknesses and anxieties, and that's how they get people under their control. And it is only at the end when Zoey, as well as Rumi and Mira, fundamentally accept their own imperfections that they are able to withstand the Sagda boys' spell. There's a philosophical coherence in all of that. Rumi fundamentally has found herself by the end of the film. Zoey is on her way there as well. She is going to need to move past her deep feelings of inadequacy and deep anxiety, her desire to please everyone. We see her perhaps start to take steps in that direction, but I would say there is still much more development for her to go through, so it'll be interesting to see how that is handled in possible future installments. In any case, Zoey is a very fascinating portrayal of someone who's pulled between two worlds and has this identity crisis because of that and is trying to figure that out throughout the film. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos just like this one before anyone else. Take care, everyone. Keep watching K-Pop Demon Hunters. Great film. Adios, comrades.